Order. Let the record show that the only commissioner that is absent is Commissioner Wardlaw. He actually went to a funeral, and he's going to be a pallbearer. All right, next, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have discussed the possible action of proposed tax, health, employee benefits pool renewal tax for plan year 2018.
Okay, Judge, Commissioners, do y'all have a copy of the renewal in front of
Yes.
you? Okay, all right.
Everybody has one?
Yeah.
Okay. So real quick, I just kind of want to briefly go over how the projected needed amount for the pool as a whole, the needed amount for the increase for the pool for claims and operation expenses for this plan year coming in 2018 is going to be 7%. That's what's going to be needed, okay, as an increase. Compared to last year, it was a 2% needed increase. Now, understand that's a 5% increase from last year. And that's mainly due to across the board, I'm not talking about Valverde County by itself, I'm talking about pool as a whole. That was due to a lot of high-cost claimants that were out there, going back and looking at experience to project for this year. So there was a lot of cancers out there. So the main, as I mentioned, the main reason for the increase is mainly due to high-cost claimants out there. Okay?
I have some questions.
Yes, sir.
I noticed on your chart here, depending upon which option we take.
Yes, sir.
So on the current option, it would go from 455 to 487.
On the renewal, yes, sir.
But
7%.
if we go to, then you have like an option 1 here, which is 474, and then an option 2, which is 465. And then it comes across to this other page. These are 600G and 600G2. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what those are.
Those two options there, Commissioner, changes your plan slightly, but still remain in grandfather status.
Okay, and then if we go to this next page, it shows option 1, 1100 EG, which would be 463, and then option 2, which is the HSA 100, goes to 376.
Correct. And those other options there are non-grandfather plans.
These are non-grandfathered, these are grandfathered.
Correct.
The G,
The G.
basically the G.
Yes, sir.
So if we move from the 600 to the 600G2, our increase would be about $10. If we stay with the current plan, our increase is going to be $32.
32.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And the difference in the deductible, I guess the only difference is really the deductibles in those plans, right?
The deductible
And
and
co-insurance.
your co-insurance maximum, it's the individual or in-network is $2,000. Option 1 goes up to $2,400, and then option 2 is $2,750. And in addition, the emergency room hospital visit, and option 2, the G2, 600G2.
Goes to 100 from
Yes, sir.
90.
Yes, sir. And the copay, all visit copays go up from $25 to $30.
Because what would be the total cost of our increase here to the county if we stick with what we have?
Well, it would just be the 487, 455 spread times how many employees are going to use it,
They brought
How many employees we have? 250 something?
233.
233.
also paying for retired.
We have,
So that puts us close to 260 more.
The increase is 89,248 based on 233 employees.
So if we drop it down and go to the G2, then our increase would be only $10.
The only thing is our employees would have to pay more deductible and more co-insurance and maximum, right?
Yes, sir.
Those are the differences.
And the last time I was out here, I believe, I brought a cost-sharing analysis, and I do believe it showed at the time, I think a little bit over 60% of employees weren't even contributing towards the deductible.
So if we set up a healthcare plan or a healthcare savings deal at the county, and we paid the difference between the 250 and the 140, only 60% of those people are using that. So there would be, did y'all run through the numbers on that to see if they work or they don't work?
Yeah, the 4% works.
It does work.
Yeah,
So if we go to the option 2,
it has the 4% grandfather, yes.
is that the 4%?
Yes.
grandfather? Okay. Then we end up with a savings.
Correct.
Do we know what the savings is?
Off the top of my head, no, I don't have to figure it out.
Off the top of my head, moving from your current plan to the G2, I believe it's around a 4% savings. Yes, sir.
A 4% savings, but then if we had to come in and make the difference on the deductible from the 250 to the 340, that would be about $90 times the number of employees at 60-something%. Trying to figure out if the numbers work to change plans. Is this increase because of us, or just the pool as a whole?
No, well,
I mean, because our numbers look pretty fairly decent.
you're absolutely correct. The high claimant report that we presented in the renewal with the claims paid and contribution,
What was the deductible? What was the difference that we would be helping with the deductible?
It's $90 difference.
so we look at your claims and everything, and we look at it as a loss ratio,
There.
right? How much we collected in premium versus
No.
the premiums that you do pay out. So that loss ratio, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, we're trying to figure this out. I mean,
I'm sorry.
you have a savings, I mean, if you go from the current plan of 455 to option 2, which is 465, the difference in cost is, I mean, you pay $25,896.96 more than what our current plan, but it's still
A savings.
a savings of, well, between renewal rates and option 2, there's a $63,000 savings. So we're gonna have to do either renewal rates or something else. I mean, you really can't figure in current plan because we're gonna have to do something else anyway. So between renewal rates and option 2, there's a $63,357,000 savings. That's just with the 233. So what we need to put in there is the difference. You're saying that 60% of our people actually used,
That didn't
use, so
didn't
40% used our plan. So the difference on the deductibles and stuff like that is what you'd say we match to help.
Yeah,
So, I
we need to
mean,
figure out what that number is.
Well, it goes up $90.
Yeah, so you got $90 times the number of employees, and then 40% of that is what's used.
Right, so I would go with 260 if we're gonna include retirees.
okay, well, it's our cost, if you do, 40% of the 233 and at $90, it's $8,388. So you have a savings still. Even if you did that, you'd still have a savings of $55,000 versus the renewal rate plan.
Yeah, there's a savings in there. It's just a matter of, then I'm assuming Juanita would have to come up with a system on how we're gonna track.
Well, usually you contract with a third party that will track all that. And we'll
Yeah, well, then your savings just went out the door.
You're gonna pay
Some of your
something.
savings,
Yeah.
but not all of it.
When does this have to be renewed?
The deadline is July 31st.
And we've talked about all this, I mean, and then the last go round, I mean, if you have like you just said, if you have the third party, the savings, it just pretty much negates the savings.
Now, there has to be a way in-house to track it. I mean, it doesn't work if you know.
I wouldn't anticipate a third party charging thousands of dollars.
That's what I'm saying, I mean,
Thousands, so it's not.
okay, so, boom. we have a $55,000 savings if you do the 40%, if they go one time. If they go more than one, then it's gonna start hurting. Well, if they go the one time, you have the $90 savings times 40% of the 233. So you're still at a $55,000 savings. So how much of, I mean, what do you think it would cost? 10? 12?
Do y'all have the capacity to track that?
No, sir, we don't do that. There's
Well,
a,
you track the people that use the deductible.
yes, Blue Cross does that. They do track, when they do meet the deductible, that comes out on their explanation of benefits.
So then you get copies of that, right?
No. Usually the explanation of benefits goes to the
To the
employee.
employee, yes, sir.
And then the employees, a lot of them will come to us to explain that, and we usually explain, this is what you're gonna pay, this is the savings, because it's very detailed. But it goes directly to the employee.
I have similar counties running kind of similar situation where they're handling in-house. What they do, they ask the employee to bring that explanation of benefits proving that it's...
And there's nothing to say we can't continue to do that,
No, sir.
or we can't ask them to do that. I mean, you know, what we're worried about on the non-grandfather is the issue under the law under Obamacare,
Yeah, as you
which
know,
probably will be repealed here in the next week or two.
we'll see.
We won't have a replacement, but
Right.
we'll
We'll see, and that's the thing that's really kind of, it's like a double-edged sword. You know, if you're still grandfathered, you gotta save, in premium, but by doing that, you have to change the plan a little bit.
Yeah.
So you save in premium, but like when you do that, you increase the deductible, increase the maximum out-of-pockets, which means that system will be coming out of the employee. But the uncertainty with the Affordable Care Act, still about 80% of our counties that are in our pool have remained grandfathered. But that's saying that they've still been able to afford to remain grandfathered. Okay, so that's the hard part, because you can only, as you can see, we have a G1 and we have a G2 option. This G2 option, our underwriters and actuary came back to us and said, hey, we found a little bit more room where we can offer this G2 plan for our county to save a little bit on premium, but still remain grandfathered. Okay, so once you go to this G2, I don't know if there's any more wiggle room at all for the county to change before going into that.
No, yeah, I
grandfathered
understand.
status. So I just wanted to, to let you know, I haven't heard anything if there's any more wiggle room, but this is pretty much the last step that you can take by going to the G2 before going into a non-grandfathered plan.
I just think we need to look at the option of trying, I mean, if we can save $50,000-$60,000, that's a lot of money,
It is.
you know.
If it cost us $10,000 to run this, then I'm just saying, let's use the number 10,000, because we're figuring 1.5% and this and that, but we don't have a deal. If it cost us $10,000 to run it, you'd still save $45,000, and versus what the renewal rate would be, you'd be saving 3.25%.
I mean, there's a savings in there, and I can't imagine that Blue Cross, or we couldn't come up with a way to manage that. If only 40% of our employees are using it, there has to be a way to manage it.
There is a way, I mean, we could do like Mr. said, have them bring in the explanation statement and go from there.
We have a meeting.
Get a system set up.
We have a meeting next week on the 24th. If we got your decision on the 24th, so we actually had hard numbers, would that be, because you're saying the 31st, so if we got your decision on the 24th,
Yes, sir.
that would give us time to put the numbers together, what it's gonna run, and actually put it on some type of spreadsheet versus all of us just writing stuff down. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Can y'all put something together, Matt, Monica, by then?
Okay.
And try to get an idea what it's gonna cost us to, if we have to have somebody administer it, or if we can come up with a system in-house.
Any other questions before or anything? No? Okay.
Thank you so much.
you.
Yes, absolutely. You are.
Commissioner Owens, you mentioned y'all are gonna have a meeting on the 24th, a regular meeting, is it gonna be a regular?
Budget workshop.
Oh, okay, so at some point, do you want Mr. Mendez to come down with the special piece?
That would be great if you could come on the 24th.
Well, the last time I talked to him, he was open the whole week, but that was
Yeah.
a little long.
I think this way, Because I knew he was open that week, so we made it for the 24th.
Okay,
Okay?
Yeah, if you can come give us a.
Who's gonna call him?
I'm sending him an email.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
All right,
It's
next,
so nice to see you. You've been gone for a long time.
all right.
Haven't been gone.
All right, next, we're gonna have a presentation, discussion, possible action on 2016 county audit report.
You get it.
The presentation by Victor Barron and from Patillo Brown and Young.
Okay?
Good morning,
Good
Judge,
morning.
Commissioners. Victor Barron with Patillo Brown and Hill. I'll just briefly go over the financial audit for September 30th, 2016. Yesterday, Matt and I and the audit committee met, and we went over the report in detail. So this morning, I'll just summarize what I went over. First of all, I'd like to start off by mentioning that the county has earned an unmodified opinion.
Which is good.
Which is good, which means that the financial statements are presented fairly with no material misstatements or any deficiencies. We also tested internal controls. We didn't find any issues there, so the county also was issued an unmodified opinion there. We also tested some grants. We tested two federal and one state for compliance, and we also issued an unmodified opinion in that area also. So that's good news. Now let's get to the numbers. Let's look at the general fund. Let's look at page 41. This is the budget to actual on the revenues in the general fund. The county had budgeted for $32 million in revenues at the beginning of the year. Actual revenues that came in were $34 million. So we have a variance of a positive variance of $2 million at the end of the year. And we can see there that the U.S. Marshal, that's the majority of it, the $1.4 million, which the $20 million was budgeted, $21 million came in. So that's the bulk of it there. Then we have some in the tax collections. There's about another $100,000 there, and then the small amounts in the other accounts. So this is the budget to actual in the general fund. The next page, the next couple of pages, the G7, page 42 through 48. These are all the expenditures in the general fund. And all the departments are in there with their budgets. There were just a couple of them that went over budget. But overall, most of them stuck within their budget. So at the end of the day, the county had, we started off with $1.2 million in fund balance. You look at page 49, it's there. The $1.2 million at the beginning of the year. We have a net change in fund balance of $2.9 million. But keep in mind, out of those $2.9 million, $2.5 million is that tax note. It's sitting there in the general fund. So you take out the 2.5, you're left with about $400,000. That's the actual change for the year. So we take the 1.256, we add the 2.9, then we have an adjustment of $26,000, bringing your total fund balance, to $4.1 million. Okay? Now, how do you break out that fund balance? Let's look at page 10. First column, general fund. Fund balance towards the middle of the page. Total fund balance, $4.1 million. Okay, so we break out that $4.1 million. There's $38,000 that belongs to the San Felipe pastors. There's $71 million that's assigned or restricted to the law library. $106,000 is left over from the 2013 tax note. There's a 2016 tax note. There's $2.5 million sitting there. Then there's $500,000 set aside for capital projects. Then there's $652,000 that we used from last year's this year's shortfall, 60-70, to cover that shortfall. So that had to be assigned there. And then we have what your unassigned amount is $386,557. That's your rainy day. And that went up a little bit, and so you got about 8 days of operations there. And we've always talked about 30, 60, 90. So we'll slowly, we went up, I think, from 5 to 8. So it's moving up. So I'd like to point that out, on your unassigned fund balance there. Any questions on the general fund? I also like to take a look at the road and bridge. Road and bridge. Let's look at page 51. Also the budget to actual for the road and bridge account. So the total revenues that were budgeted were 1.4 million. Actual revenues were 1.3, so there's a shortfall there, or a negative of $95,000 in the road and bridge. Total expenditures for the road and bridge were $733,000. I'm sorry, 638, plus the transfer out for the salaries, which gave us a negative change of $337,000. So we had a beginning fund balance of $254,000. We take that negative 337, we come back to a negative $82,000 in the road and bridge fund. So the road and bridge has an $82,000 deficit, and as of 9/30/2016. So of course, the general fund had to, supplement this fund. We went over that yesterday with the audit committee also, as well. On page 50, let's look at the interest and sinking fund, the debt service fund. The county budgeted $1.5 million in total revenues. Total revenues that came in, 1.6. So we had a positive variance of $58,000 this year. We had expenditures of $4.8 million. Then we have the money that comes in from the state to cover the state loop. Then we have that short-term payment for the line of credit for $910,000. So we had a net change of $342,000 in the interest and sinking fund. Our beginning fund balance was $3.1 million. We subtracted $342. At the end of the year, there's $2.7 million in the fund balance for the interest and sinking funds. So it's still pretty strong. Those are the three funds that the county budgets for. We can also look at on page 10, we can look at the balance sheet for the general fund. There's $6.6 million in total assets. Out of those 6.6, there's $4.4 million in cash, $2,300 in investments, $1.3 million in taxes receivable, and $862,000 that are due from other funds. We also have some liabilities. We have $934,000 in accounts payable, $199,000 is due to another fund. We have total deferred inflows of 1.3. That's the offset to the taxes receivable. And then like I also mentioned, the fund balance at the end of $4.1 million. The loop project, that's got $20 million in total assets. It's got $172,000 in fund balance or cash, which is the same. Then we have $20 million in due from other governments and $20 million in unearned revenue. And those offset each other. Those are the bond payments that come in. Then we have the $172,000 in fund balance at the end of the year. And the rest of it is non-major, which is the special revenues, the grants. So overall, the financial statements are presented fairly, and like I mentioned, we could do a little bit better on increasing our fund balance next year, or in a couple of months. Any questions on?
Get to the part that we did good.
I don't know if everybody got one.
Did you get one?
I got one.
There you go.
So every year we come back and we evaluate the internal controls, any deficiencies, any recommendations that we might have for the county. And this year we have a couple, which it's improved, from prior years.
Use the word consider.
Yeah, I can remember when this book was real big.
That was a long time ago, right?
Mhm.
The first comment, and we brought this up in the past, segregation of duties, where the auditor's office handles payroll and human resources. They have the accessibility. They can go in there and create an employee and pay them also. That's a no-no. You can't do that. Also, they can, you can't, the human resource department has to, key in, or there has to be some controls set on their computers, the administrator, who can go in there and who can't set up a vendor. The auditor's office can't set up a vendor and then pay them also. Or, set up an employee and then pay them also. There has to be some division there. And that's what that is. But they have the capability, they're not doing it, but there's capability of them doing it, so there has to be something that can be done with the IT department and the auditor's office. Employee documentation, there were some, when we were testing payroll or reviewing payroll, there were some I-9s that were incomplete. Every employee should have every employee should have a completed I-9 on file. Those are the two new ones this past year. And then the one from prior year, we discussed this already. The general ledger, there's multiple agencies that deposit monies into multiple bank accounts. And so you have money, I think there's 3 or 4 bank accounts for agencies deposit money into, and it just becomes a little confusing at times. But, Matt and is working on trying to, narrow it down to a couple of just one or two accounts.
The court is actually taking steps
Okay.
to fix that.
All right. So that's the only thing that I have for this past year.
That's pretty good.
Other than that, it's a clean report.
Make a motion to approve the audit.
There's a
Approve and
motion.
accept.
Okay, there's a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Second. Any more questions, discussion?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion, a second. All those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nobody, 4-0.
Bill, I need a copy. Do you want a copy in a minute?
Yes, I want to.
Okay, I
Can
don't
you
have
get, for one of these that you can give for the minute?
No, the big book.
Oh, yeah.
Big book.
Yeah, I have the little
I
one.
have some in the office.
Matt has one. If you can give it to Janie so she can put it in the minutes.
I need to record it.
And I think we're required to have it on our website too, our annual audit.
We have an electronic file. I'll send it to Matt and he'll forward it to you.
Good.
All right,
If we get it on the website, I think we're required to have it on there.
okay. If nothing else, then this meeting's adjourned.
I've